She got into his car because everything felt normal. That's the part she keeps thinking about. There was nothing obviously wrong. No red flags. No warning. Just a quiet road and a simple mistake. She was a nursing student. The type of person who always planned ahead. Except that night. She stayed too long after studying and missed the last bus home. Her phone was dead. The street was nearly empty, and the silence around her felt too loud. She had two choices, wait or start walking. She chose both. The road was familiar. She had driven it dozens of times. She knew every turn, which is why at first, nothing felt wrong. After about 10 minutes, a car slowed down beside her, a dark sedan. The window rolled down. A man leaned slightly toward her. Need a ride? His voice was calm, too calm, but not strange, just normal enough. She hesitated, only for a second. Then she said yes. She got in, closed the door, and for a while, everything was fine. They talked where she was going, what she studied, simple things, the kind of conversation that makes you feel safe. For 10 minutes, the road matched exactly what she expected. Every turn, every street, everything made sense. She leaned back slightly, relaxed, and looked out the window, and then the car turned left. She knew that turn, and she knew instantly that it was wrong. That road didn't go toward town, it went away from it, into open land, no houses, no lights, just darkness stretching out on both sides. She felt it immediately, that quiet shift inside her chest. Something isn't right, she said carefully. I think you missed the turn. He didn't look at her, didn't hesitate. Shortcut. One word. Simple. Easy to believe. For a second, she almost did, but then she looked outside again. And this time, she really looked. The road was too dark, too empty, too quiet, and then she noticed something else. He was slowing down, not stopping, just slower. That's when it hit her. He wasn't lost. She said, "Can you pull over? I'll walk from here." Nothing, no response. He just kept driving, hands steady, eyes forward, completely calm. And that silence, that heavy, controlled silence, was the worst part, because it meant one thing. He had done this before. Her heart started racing. Her hands went cold. She grabbed the door handle, pulled, locked. That's when panic hit. Not slowly, all at once. She didn't think, didn't plan. She just screamed. Not words, just sound. Loud, raw, desperate. She screamed into the darkness outside, into empty fields, into nothing. And she pulled the handle again, ready to jump, even if the car was still moving. He slammed the brakes. Gravel snapped under the tires. For the first time, he looked at her, and that's what she remembers the most, because he didn't look scared. He didn't look caught. He looked annoyed, like she ruined something. She didn't wait. She opened the door and ran. She ran without looking back, down that empty road, into the dark, for 10 minutes straight, until she saw lights. A gas station. She walked inside, stood under the lights, didn't move, didn't speak, just breathed. Her friend came to get her. Police took a report. They never found the car, but she doesn't need them to, because she remembers that word, shortcut. How normal it sounded, how easy it was to believe. She got lucky. She knows that, because not everyone who gets into the wrong car gets out. The road won't warn you. The driver won't warn you. All you have is that feeling, and whether you trust it before it's too late. And even later, when everything was over, and he was sitting in his brother's car, hands still slightly shaking, heater blowing warm air that finally reached his bones. He kept replaying it, not the obvious parts, not the van, Not the silence, the small things. The way the driver never once adjusted the mirror. The way the radio was off. Completely off. Like even background noise wasn't allowed. The way the road stretched endlessly ahead. And yet the driver never seemed to check directions. Never hesitated. Never questioned where they were going. Like he already knew. Like there was only ever one destination. And that thought stayed with him for days, for weeks, because what frightened him most wasn't what happened. It was how close he came to ignoring it. How easy it would have been to say nothing at the rest stop, to stay quiet, to be polite, to not make it awkward. He realized something then, something that no one really teaches you. Danger doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Sometimes it feels quiet, and sometimes the only thing standing between you and something irreversible is a small voice inside your head that makes no sense at all. A voice you can ignore, or a voice you can trust. That night, he chose to trust it, and even now, whenever the world goes a little too quiet, whenever something feels just slightly off, he doesn't wait for proof anymore. He listens, and what stayed with him the longest wasn't fear. It wasn't even the image of the van disappearing into the dark. It was the realization of how thin the line really was. How close everything had been to going a different way. A few more minutes of silence. One missed sign. One decision to stay seated instead of speaking up. And the story would have ended somewhere else entirely. Unfinished. Unheard. He started noticing how often people ignore that feeling. On buses, on streets, in empty parking lots. That slight hesitation. That moment where something feels off, but not enough to explain. Not enough to justify reacting, so people don't. They smile, they nod, they stay. Because leaving feels rude. Because questioning feels awkward. Because nothing has happened yet. And that's the trap. He understood it now in a way he never had before. That danger doesn't always arrive with noise or warning. Sometimes it arrives quietly, patiently, waiting for you to doubt yourself. Waiting for you to choose comfort over instinct. And he almost did. That's the part that never lets him fully forget. Not what the driver might have been, but what he himself almost became in that moment. Someone who ignores it. Someone who stays. But he didn't now. Every time something feels even slightly wrong, he doesn't argue with it. He doesn't try to explain it away. He moves. He leaves. He chooses discomfort over risk every single time, because he knows now that silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's hiding something, and sometimes noticing it is the only reason you get to walk away at all. And there's one more thing he never tells people right away. Not because he forgot, but because it's the part that's hardest to explain. When he stepped out of the van, just before he closed the door, he glanced back inside, only for a second. Just a reflex, and everything looked normal. The seat, the floor, the empty space behind him. Nothing obvious, nothing that proved anything, but the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it got stronger, because there was nothing. There no visible reason, no clear danger, and yet every part of him was screaming to keep walking, to not go back, to not even hesitate. That contradiction stayed with him more than anything else. The idea that you don't always get evidence. You don't always get confirmation. Sometimes you just get a feeling, and you have to decide what to do with it. Trust it, and maybe look paranoid. Ignore it, and maybe never get another chance to rethink it. That's the real choice. That's the part no one prepares you for. And ever since that night, he made a quiet promise to himself. He would rather be wrong 100 times than be right once too late. Because out there, on empty roads, in quiet places, in moments that feel just slightly off. There isn't always a second chance. Sometimes there's just a door, a decision, and the few seconds where you choose whether you walk away or stay. I knocked on my neighbor's door, and he opened it. We spoke for maybe 10 seconds. The next day, I found out he had been dead for 3 weeks. This last one isn't about a place, it's about a person, and about how long you can convince yourself you just got the dates wrong. I was 24, living in an old apartment building in the city center, the kind where the elevator always smells faintly like someone else's food, where every floor feels slightly different, and where the best thing you can hope for is quiet neighbors. And I had that fourth floor. Corner of the hallway. One door directly across from mine. Always closed, always silent. I lived there for about 3 months before I even thought about it. Johnny from the second floor, the building's unofficial source of gossip. Me, an old man named Pavel, lived there. Very quiet, didn't talk to anyone. Sometimes seen in the lobby in the mornings. Normal old guy, he said. Just keeps to himself. So I stopped thinking about the door, until one night, I smelled something. I was coming home late, around midnight. I stepped out of the elevator onto the 4th floor and immediately noticed it. Something. Cooking. Onions. Warm. Familiar. The kind of smell that usually means someone's home. It felt normal, so I didn't question it. A week later, it happened again. Same time. Same smell. This time I stopped in the hallway. Just stood there and listened. Nothing. No movement. No voices. No TV. Just the smell and silence around it. I remember thinking that didn't make sense, but I still went inside, closed my door, and forgot about it until a week after that. That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I walked up to his door and knocked. No answer. I waited. 10 seconds, maybe a little more. I was already turning away when I heard something. A soft movement right behind the door, like someone had been standing there the whole time. Then, very slowly, the door opened. Just a narrow gap, no chain, and inside, darkness. Not normal darkness, not just lights off. Something heavier, like the light from the hallway, just stopped at the doorway and refused to go any further. And in that darkness, I saw him, an old man, very thin, sunken eyes, pale skin, looking straight at me. Not surprised, not confused, just looking. I said, "Sorry, I'm your neighbor from across the hall. Just wanted to introduce myself." He didn't respond right away. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then he said, quietly, flat, like stating a fact, "I know." And he closed the door. Just like that, I stood there for a few seconds, trying to process what just happened. Then I went back into my apartment, made tea, sat down, and told myself he was just a strange old man. That's all. The next day, I told Johnny. He laughed. "That's Pavel," he said. "He does that. Opens the door, looks, closes it. Don't take it personally." So I didn't. Single quotes. T. Time passed. The smell didn't come back. And eventually, I forgot about it. Until about a month later, Johnny knocked on my door. It was evening, I remember, because I was watching something. He stood there for a moment, and then said, "Hey, just so you know, Pavel passed away." I asked him when. He said, "About 3 weeks ago." Neighbors noticed the smell, called it in. No family. The apartment's sealed now. I didn't understand at first. 3 weeks, I did the math, and everything went cold. 3 weeks ago was before the night I knocked. Before the night he opened the door. Before he looked at me and said, "I know." I told Johnny exactly that. He just looked at me and shrugged. "Maybe you mixed up the dates." Maybe. That's what I told myself too. But I checked my phone. Messages. Anything that could prove that night happened. Later. Nothing. No proof. Just memory. I moved out 2 months later. Officially. The rent had gone up, and that part was true. just not the whole truth. Asterisk. Because the thing that stayed with me wasn't the smell. It wasn't the door. It was the way he said it. I know. Not hello. Not who is it just. I know. Like he had been expecting me. Like he already knew I would knock. Now, every time I walk into a building and smell food in a quiet hallway, I stop just for a second, and I listen, and I hope that if I knock nothing answers. Johnny texted me later, said, new people moved into that apartment, a young couple, quiet neighbors. He said, I didn't ask anything else, but I thought about it. They don't know. They don't know who stood behind that door. Or what answered me that night. Or maybe they do now.